So we're going to come in here, we're going to make a new project. I'm going to call it a 2D project. I'll put it here on my desktop for now. And we'll call it that. Wait for it to load. Give it just a second to load the new project. It's taking its sweet time. Okay. Now what I can do is inside of my project, I can create a new folder here, and I can call it resources. And then in this, I'm going to create a new folder here called, do I need to have it in a subfolder? Probably. We're going to call this game. And then I'm going to add in these resources. Okay, these things, my pixels per unit, that's going to be 600. Isn't that what I decided on? Yes. And we don't want to have any quality changes. We want them to be bilinear. And we want them to have a physics shape. This one, we don't need to have a physics shape. Okay. And now what I can do is I think I'm ready to start. Let me fix my camera here so it's better. And now what I want to do is make a new folder in here called scenes. We already have one, so I'm going to call this underscore scenes so it's always at the top. And now what I can do is I can bring these into the project. Now, the first one I want to make is a prefab. So we're going to make an empty prefab. I'm going to bring in this block object. I'm going to say this is block 0. And then we're going to bring in another object here. Just duplicate it. And this will be block 1, block 2, and block 3. And the positions of all these will be at 0, 0, 0. I want to make a new folder called materials. And I'm going to add a new material in here called sprite material. And I want this to be a unlit texture with transparency, right? So all three of these should have this sprite material on them. And their positions here will be 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. And that represents the first shape. So we're going to call this a O. And I'm going to make a new folder in here, and I'm going to call it assets. I'm going to say that this is a block or a piece, and we'll save it. What are these? These are new. Oh, you can't mess with it. Cool. Okay. I'm going to change this to be called prefabs. Now what I should be able to do is modify this and create another type, which is a prefab variant, and I'm going to call this one an O. And its position will be at 0. Let's open this prefab and change the positioning here of all of these blocks, like that. Now we'll make a derivated version of it. Which will be called a O. Okay, we need to duplicate this, and we need to have one for an S. We need to have one for a, a Z. We need to have one for a T. We need to have one for a I. Are those only 5 pieces? I believe so. Let me think about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think I'm missing any. So when I do this, I'm going to first open up this prefab, and I'm going to change this to be 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, and 0, 3. Like that, okay? This one here is the O. That's perfect already. How did I go back? There, thank you. The next one is this S, which needs to be a 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, and then a 2, 1. We need to do the Z, which is a 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 2, 0. I need to do a T, which is 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, and 0, and 1, 0, right? Oh, I need to do those pieces, right? So there's also an L and a J. So this one needs to be a J. So this is a 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. This one is an L, so it's a 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, and then a 1, 0. Okay, we have an S, a T, which is a 1. That one's right. There we go. And then a Z. So those are all of our pieces. So what we need to do is make a new folder in here called scripts. And I'm going to make a new folder called prefabs, or I'm going to call it mono behaviors. And I'm going to add a new C# script. And I'm going to call this a piece script. Now, it doesn't start me in the proper namespace, so I'm going to just make a new file in here. Just call it class, get my namespace, delete the file. Okay, before I even get started, I need to have one in here called base mono behavior, which is a base mono behavior. And we want to say that this is disposable. And then you want to have a public virtual void dispose. And instead of doing a virtual, you'll do a, we'll do it as a virtual. And then we'll make this an abstract class. And then we want to have a on, what is it called? I have this written down already. Just a second. Let me pull this up from another project. It doesn't matter. We can add that stuff in later. We need to add in a few things here into the base. And we're going to call this a base mono behavior. I want to have a public enum called piece type, which is going to be a O, J, L, S, Z, T, I. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. On this, we also want to have a require component. It's a type of sprite renderer. And we'll have a, now, do I want to set this in code? I think the answer is yes in my init method. So we want to have a protected, we'll have a public virtual void called init. You're going to be passing some kind of a scriptable object into that, right? So you're basing it. And init is going to be called from a scriptable so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another folder in here called scriptable objects. I'm going to make another class called base scriptable object. I'll make it a public. Abstract class, which is inheriting from scriptable object. And so now my piece script is going to have this piece type identified here. And on my first one of these, we're going to have a block SO. And on this block, I want to have a sprite second. Okay. And I think that's it, right? I need to add this to the asset database. So to do that, it's Unity add to add scriptable object menu. This. Menu name, file name, order. The order doesn't matter. Menu name, we're going to call it scriptable objects block. Now we're going to extend this, and I'm going to make another one, which is called block gem. And then we're going to make another one of these, which is just called gem SO. And so this is going to have a enum on here called gem type. And we have a diamond, we had a ruby, we had an emerald, a sapphire, a amber, and an amethyst. I'm going to get that thing spelled correctly here. A-M-E-T-H. There. And this will have a public gem type called gem type. Now, over on my block gem SO, just a second, because what I'm thinking is any block could have a gem on it. And so on this block, what I want to know is the color, block color, and we have purple, green, red, orange, blue, yellow. Okay. On your block SO, you could also have a gem but you're never going to see the scriptable object. It's okay, hold on. Because I don't think I need this. And we want to have on this a public. We want to have another thing on here called gem colors. I'm just going to call it a color SO. And on this, I want to have the colors here. and then this is called a color. So that means that a gem has a sprite, has a gem type, it have a color, and then this is going to have any number of these block gem SO called block gems. And on my block gems, which is a base scriptable object, I want to have a sprite. I want to have a color. So a gem has any number of these block gems, which has a sprite and a color. And so now a block could have a gem and what I want to say is we want to have a public block gem SO. We're going to call this gem capital. And what I want to do is I want to get my gem. I want to say if my gem does not equal to null, then I want to do a return my gem dot block gems dot first or default x, where my color is equal to this. It's called block color. I don't think I need this color SO anymore. That was a little over the top. We need to have down here a public enum block color, and we had purple, green, red, orange, blue, and yellow. And now your piece is a mono behavior because it's going to be either A OJLSZTI, right? And so what this piece is going to be given is a protected we need to add another script in here called a block script. And all this one's going to have is a public override init. Now, what I need is for this init to pass in here a so in my base mono behavior, I want to make these things a generic where my T is a type of base scriptable object. And then I'm going to add in here a public T called scriptable object. Which makes this block going to have to inherit a block SO. We want this to be an abstract. Maybe not. And now what I want to do is your init is going to set the block script, which has the block and the sprite renderer on it. You want to do a public override of the init. So after we set it, I want to make sure that I have a protected read-only sprite. It's not read-only. A protected sprite renderer called sprite renderer. And what I want to do here is on my awake, I want to say my sprite renderer equals a get component sprite renderer. Now what I can say is my sprite renderer dot. Now in my block SO, I can say that this is a capital sprite. Now I want to say if my gem does not equal to null, then I want to return my gem.sprite. Otherwise, I want to return the sprite. So over here, I can say the sprite renderer.sprite is equal to my scriptable object.sprite. Now in my piece, I'm going to have a number of these block scripts, right? Called blocks. This wants me to include a generic type, so I do need to have something in here called a piece SO. Which is going to be one of these piece types. So this mono behavior here is going to have a type of piece SO on it. A piece is also going to have a number of these block scripts called blocks. And then it's also going to have, and each block script has a block on it, which has the information associated with it. You also have your piece here, so you know what your type is. Okay, so I think we're ready to put it together. Back in Unity, I can now create a new folder called scriptable objects. And in this, I'm going to add a new scriptable object called a piece. So I'm going to create a new folder here called pieces. When I look at my scriptable object, every one of these needs to have a public GUID ID. How did I do this before? How did I do this? I only want it to populate the ID if I don't have one. So I could do that in the constructor. We'll just do something like that for now. I don't know if that's going to work. Yeah, let's just try that real quick. Okay, so this doesn't know how to read a GUID, so we'll use it as a string. There we go. And when I duplicate this, it should give me a different one, and it does. So we're going to say that these pieces go in here, and we're going to have a I, a J, an L, an O, an S, a T, and a Z. And this is an I, J, L, O, S, T, and a Z. The next one that we have here are blocks. And we're going to have a new block, which we're going to call block purple, block green, block red, block orange, block blue, and block yellow. Which is blue, green, orange, purple, red, and yellow. Currently on block I have gem. I don't want that there. I want gem to get set. So we want to make that a protected gem. And then I want to have a public virtual void called set gem. Okay, we need to put this one as yellow, red, purple, orange, green, and blue. Okay, we need another one here, which is called block gem with an S. And we're going to say that we have a diamond purple, and we have a ruby green, and we have a emerald red, and a sapphire orange, a amber blue, and a amethyst yellow. And so on this, we're going to set the colors to be purple, yellow, red, green, and orange. And the sprites for these are here. So amber blue, amethyst yellow, diamond purple, emerald green, ruby green, sapphire orange. Okay, are there any other scriptable objects we added? Gems. Don't forget to change the block color in the list. Which one was that? I think I got it. Okay, we'll do the gem. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. Let's grab a scriptable object for a gem here and call it a diamond. And we have a ruby and a emerald and a amethyst and a sapphire and a amber. I haven't output these yet, but we can do that in a few minutes. Okay. And then you can set the block gems. So for example, on this amber, we can add amber blue. Amethyst, we can add amethyst yellow. Diamond, we can add diamond purple. Emerald, we can add emerald red. Ruby, I can add ruby green. Sapphire, I can add sapphire orange. Looks good. The last thing I need to do is on my scripts, I want to add in here a piece script. Let me open this prefab. And on all four of these, I want to add a block script. I'm leaving this as an SO that's available here so that we can inspect it in the inspector if we need to. You already got it. Thank you, man. And then on these, here's the block script. You need to add all of these into this variable. What's up, Keith? How you doing, buddy? Okay, let me add in here these blocks. Looks good. So now I've got all of these things assigned. We'll be able to pull the piece scriptable objects out as we need it. The only other thing I can think of that I want to add right now is a new script called a asset database SO. And we're going to call this a asset database SO. And in this, I just want to have a whole list of these asset, it's called base scriptable object, scriptable objects. And then to make my life a little easier in a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and add on here a piece SO array, which is called pieces. And we want to get my return my scriptable objects of type piece SO .to array. And I want to do the same thing for a block SO. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know that. That makes sense with the refresh being slow. Okay, we want to have a gem SO called gems. I want to have another one here called a block gem SO. Call that block gems. We're going to create a new script in here called global manager and another script in here called game manager. So on global manager, I'm going to have a base. I want to have another class in here called base manager. And I'll add some more code in this in a few. One thing I want to change is I want to make a new base mono behavior SO, which is a this and then a base mono behavior. And then in this one I can get rid of this generic. Okay, we want this to be an abstract class. Hey, Shaz Robot, it's good to see you too. Thanks for coming back. How are you doing today? Appreciate that. Are you in our Discord? If not, make sure you join so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on with the stream. We don't have anything in this yet, but we will in a few. And then I want to, in my game manager here, have a public class called base manager. And on this, we're going to have a public asset database SO called asset database. And then I want to make a public static asset database SO called asset database. So then when we do a start, I can do my asset database. What's going on with my cable again? It seems like my cable's breaking. I can do a asset database SO equals asset database. This one is the game manager. It doesn't have anything in it at this point. I've been super busy as well trying to get my Python skills up so I can get a job after school. That's smart. Data analytics is a really lucrative way to go if you ask me. Okay. Looks good. Let's see if it builds. All right. So back in here, if I look at my scriptable objects, I want to make a new one called a database, and I'm going to call this asset database. And on here, I want to put all of these things. And then we need to make a new empty object here called global manager. And I'm going to go ahead and add on here a global manager script, and we can add in my asset database. Additionally, I can create my new game manager. Like that. So let's first get it so that these pieces are instantiating correctly. When I instantiate a piece, what I want it to do is have a couple of blocks that get assigned to it from scriptable objects. Now, that could be sent from the player. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a new I kind of want to make a factory for this, a scriptable object factory. Do I want to? Hold on. Yeah, let's do that to start. So I want us to do a public override init, and I want to say my protected asset database SO, call this asset database, and that's from my global manager.asset database. Whenever that gets instantiated, you have to call init. So instead of doing it this way, we're going to get rid of this. I'm going to create a protected piece SO, call it a piece. And then we're going to call this a virtual void for start. Now what I want to do is I want to assign a piece to it. So the first thing is asset database.pieces order by, and we can just do it by a new GUID, and then I can just take one. Now this isn't a instance of the piece. So what I want to have on here is a public override called init. Where I actually pass in an instance of the scriptable object. Like that. And so now over here I can do a public override for my init, and I can set my piece type equal to my scriptable object dot. And here what I want to say is if my scriptable object is a piece SO, then I want to do this. Unity, ew. Okay. So in my piece script, when I'm starting this, I need to make a new class in here called a scriptable object factory. Come on, where did that go? Now this class, I want to create as a nothing, I don't think, and let me do a public virtual void get piece. And you want to do this. And in this, I want to do the same start thing. So now if you get a piece, you want to do a var instance equals scriptable object dot create instance of a. Piece SO. And then you want to do instance dot init of my piece. Now, this is a little bit wrong because this is just a scriptable object. This can be a create object of type T, and it can return type T, where T is a type of base scriptable object, like that. And if your SO does not equal to null, like that. Okay. This needs to be a base mono behavior. So we can move it up into this class. And so in my global manager, I can create a new public static scriptable object factory. This we don't need to inherit from anything, and this can just be in the constructor. And we can make this read only. Now, if I really want to make this easy, which I do, then I'm going to make this a static class. I'm going to make this a public static void, and it's going to be called set. Oh, I could still do this in the initial. There's no constructor on it anymore, so it's going to be a set asset database, which will be this. This needs to be a static. And so that way over here in my start, instead of doing that, I can just do a scriptable object factory.set asset database to my asset database. And over here, this one we want to say create instance of object. And then you want to have one more called get object of type T. And then you want to have one more, which is a public static T get object and create instance. So this one, you only want to get the scriptable objects of type T where your ID is equal to your ID dot first or default. And if it finds it, so that's it. You just want to return that. But the second one is going to be this same thing here. And you're going to create an instance of it and return it. Create instance of random object, like that, okay? And so now in start, I can say scriptable object factory dot. Hey there, Benedict. How are you doing today? Welcome to the channel. And I want to do, how are you doing today? Let me do a create instance of random object, and I want to do it for a, no, I want to set my asset database first. And so now over in a piece, when we instantiate it, I want to say that my piece dot is equal to my scriptable object factory dot create instance of random object of a piece scriptable object. And then I want to do a piece dot, I think that's it, right? Well, no, this piece script has to have a sprite renderer on it, which we need to call from the awake. Yes, I am. We already started this morning by creating most of the assets for it. They look something like this, or when everything has been put onto it, then they look like this. So these are most of what the assets look like for this project. We created this from at the beginning today. So now in this one, we want to say that my sprite renderer is equal to a get component of sprite renderer. And now you want to say your for each var item in piece dot so this piece SO needs to create a number of blocks. So now what you want to do is for I goes to 4, you want to say your scriptable object factory dot create instance of random object of a block SO. And then what we're going to do this as a I collection of block SO. Like that. And you can say blocks dot add this. So for each piece dot blocks, public I collection of block SO called blocks, we want to get my blocks. No, not really. We've just been building for a little bit. And so for each one of these, I want to do a for I is in my piece.blocks.length count, I want to do a blocks of I dot init my piece.blocks of I. So let's save some processing power and put this as like that. Like that. So now my piece will create each one of these different blocks, and we'll set the sprite. Okay, the next thing is on your block SO, on your init, I want to first say if my scriptable object is a block SO, then I want to say your sprite equals c.sprite and your block color equals c.block color. And then what I want to do is I want to set just one second. I don't know if I need to do all this. Hold on. So you're setting those. You're creating 4 instances that'll set it. Let's do this one here as a public override init. We'll do if my scriptable object is a gem SO, then we want to do a sprite equals C dot sprite, gem type equals C dot gem type, and block gems equals C dot block gems. This is the last one. I want to say public override init. I want to say if my scriptable object is a block gem SO, then I want to sprite is equal to C.sprite, color is equal to C.color. We'll also do it for asset database, and we'll do a public override init. And I want to say if my scriptable object is asset database SO, we'll call that C. We just want to say my scriptable objects equals C.scriptable objects. If you want to learn programming for the first time, what language should I choose to start? I recommend people start with object-oriented programming. If you do like procedural programming first, it's a little easier to get started, but it's harder to learn object-oriented programming later. So one of the good ones, I mean, people are going to tell me all sorts of different things. I'm a fan of C#. I think TypeScript is a good choice. I think Python's a good choice. Anything that's a hard-typed language is a good one, in my opinion. Okay, so back over in Global Manager now, this one you can actually do this as a scriptable object factory asset database. You're going to set this here, and you're going to do a create object public static T called create object, which is a object, or we're going to say that this is my scriptable object, and all you're going to do is this I'm going to say where T is a base scriptable object. No problem, happy to help. Like that. Let's build it, and I think we're ready to test. So when I test this out, I guess it's running because it doesn't have anything happening. We should be able to just drag a piece out onto the board and have it instantiate. Okay, let's take a look and see what happened here. So piece.blocks. You're setting blocks here. So let's attach this to Unity and see what happened. Okay, when I drag it on, we get my base scriptable object, which is a piece SO of type S. We set it, we set my pieces, and now for each one of my blocks, I'm creating them. It says my block SO, my sprites are null. Oh, it's this. This is a scriptable objects of type T. Let's try it again. If you speak out loud what you're coding, is it helps or does it slow the process? It's actually a thing called rubber ducky programming. Some people find it to be not helpful. Some people find it to be helpful. I'm kind of in the middle. Let's try it again. And there you go. And now when I instantiate my pieces, they should be coming in all the different colors and types. That was a good little push. So we got our initial assets created. I'm going to have to put the logic in the game as well as we start moving forward with it. We need to incorporate the gem piece as well, but we're making good progress. So actually, before I take a break, let's do good by our programming skills, and let's go ahead and jump over to GitHub real fast. And what I want to do is I want to create a new repository, and we're going to call this Gem Wars, and it'll be private. And we'll have a README, and I'm going to say that this is for Unity. My license will be the Apache or the MIT, and I'll create it. And now what I want to do is I want to do a clone or download of this and jump into source tree. And we will clone a new repository into my projects folder. Call this phs.gemwars. Okay, we're going to do a branch off this for test. And then we'll do a branch off this one for development. And now what I want to do is close up everything. Okay, and now we can copy everything from this into my new repo that I just added. While this works, we can also open up our Jira and navigate to my projects. Okay, is that done? I think that's done. I want to create a new project here. And I'm going to call this Gem Wars. Back over here in my Git, here's all my new stuff. I'm just going to quickly check to make sure I don't get anything I shouldn't. Looks perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and commit this as my init. The next thing I want to do is jump over to my Confluence. I've never done the copy paste thing. I always end up with a subdirectory for the Unity part, so I end up with two different directories, basically the name thing. I think I'll try it your way. The reason that's done, Dr. Argus, is look at this one, okay? If I jump into my Unity hub, I have this one project here, and if we go and look at how it's set up in my file tree, this is No Turning Back, the game that we created on stream. So inside of source, I have a folder called current. And then in that, I've got my ASP.NET project in the backend folder. Looks like for this one, I've got identity outside of it. I shouldn't. Looks like that there's nothing in that. So just ignore this folder. This shouldn't be there. I've got my load balancer. And then this is my Unity code. But because it's in this folder called Unity, when I look at it in the Unity store, it just comes up as Unity. I'd have to make another folder called There Is No Turning Back and dump that into there. And I don't want to give up all those characters. Okay, so this is going now. Back over here, we can check this, and this should be done. There's our initial commit. And we can create a new space here. Just ignore this. Are you going to be solo on this project? I asked because of all of the PM bits you're spinning up. Yep, this one's all me. This should be a fairly quick project, but I've made enough stuff to know that it really helps to have this thing under control and document it as I go. So let's create a space. I'm going to call this Gem Wars. Okay, that's done. That's done. We're finished here. This is creating, I imagine. It's probably going to make 2 instances now. Okay, and now I think we're good to go. I don't know what's going on with my phone. So, I like setting up all the things too, but when I'm working alone, I get lazy and don't keep it all updated. Yeah, I've really been burned for not having documentation and resources, plus the availability of doing something like a devlog is kind of interesting. So, all right, I got to take a break. I've been going for 3.5 hours right now. When we come back, I'll be gone for 20 minutes. I'm gonna eat some food. When we come back, so many things left to do on this project. We could work on getting the identity server set up so that way we have our authentication. We could get the backend set up as well. We probably want to continue with the logic of the game itself. So maybe I want to add like a board, for example, a grid, and then the capability to drag and drop things. So thanks for staying with me. Enjoy the break. If you have any questions, make sure you pop in our Discord, discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com, and I'll talk to you guys all in a little bit. Thanks so much.